Congress was responsible for Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem getting the shaft finally, or getting demoted today by Donald Trump. And specifically, I'm going to share to you what happened over the last 2 days of oversight hearing in the House of Representatives and Senate that I believe was the tipping point that caused Trump to lay down the gauntlet today on Ms. Noem. But before I do that, and I am going to share receipts, I do want to first frame this for you and also address folks who, under the comments of my post, when I share testimony of congressional hearings and I announce, for example, that Penn Bondi has been subpoenaed, who say nothing's going to come of it. What's the point in all these sessions? And here is an example of what's the point of all the sessions, besides the fact that they lead to firings. They also are on the record statements sworn under oath. Right now, as I speak, there are civil and criminal cases, litigation going on related to this administration, and statements that are forced by Congress to be made by the representatives from the executive branch and from cabinet officials can be used against them. Their omissions, they make denials, they make confirmations. The statements are being watched by people in these litigation. Also, these statements lay the foundation for future oversight hearings, for future investigations, for future criminal and civil referrals in state and federal. State is a nominative word because state means it cannot be pardoned by Donald Trump. Donald Trump cannot pardon for criminal matters. And also for civil rights, there are class action lawsuits. There's a lot of things that can be done by the statements. And there's a reason why a lot of times, I'm JJ Legal, this is the first time you're seeing me. One of the things I do is monitor the lawsuits related to the Trump administration as a former regulatory attorney, a current lawyer, advocate, educator here on social media. And one of the things I often say is that they, from looking at the statements, they avoid on the record statements because they know the effect, because they know it's perjury. A lot of times when judges ask for declarations to make certain statements and make certain affirmations, they send underlings to do it. And they try to avoid being under oath. So having a subpoena to come under oath under penalty of perjury or jail time, ask Steve Bannon. He served 4 months in prison from Donald Trump's first term for refusing to go before Congress pursuant to a subpoena. And Roger Stone was sentenced to prison for contempt of Congress. So all of that yapping Palm Bondi was on last time, that could be considered contempt of Congress, jailable offense. So that's the difference between the two. So I did want to frame that up first to let you know that there are some value to this. Now, the reason why I believe that the members of Congress yesterday are responsible for this is because they did a masterful job. And my MVPs, there were 2 days of hearings. On Tuesday was the Senate, and on Wednesday was the House of Representatives. I have MVPs. I watched a lot of the hearings, and you probably seen some go through your social media streams. People have been capturing the zingers. For me, on the Senate side, the MVP for the Republicans, and this is really key and essential, is Senator Tom Tillis from North Carolina and Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana were very instrumental in this for some things that they said. I'm gonna share with you specifically in a second. So that's my MVP. On the Democratic side, there's two that stand out: Senator Cory Booker. I'm gonna tell you why in a second, and then also Senator Welch from Vermont. Masterful job of setting it up to letting Donald Trump know why this woman is making you look like a chump. She's violating and just undermining your legacy, and she's single-handedly destroying your one policy issue that you came into and campaigned on, and she's by herself is destroying it because she doesn't know what she's doing. You shouldn't have appointed her in the first place. She has no law enforcement activity. You knew her relationship with Cory Lewandowski, allegedly, reportedly, and something that you, according to insiders, said you were not comfortable with, was going to be a problem, and it has manifested itself. So, as was brought out by the members of Congress these last 2 days. So, my MVP on the House of Representatives side, I think Jared Moskowitz actually takes the number one slot. He really did his thing. Joe Neguse from Colorado did a wonderful job. I think Representative Sydney Kamlager-Dove also brought it home. She made some really great points from the Democratic side. There was no members of the Republicans or the representatives that I think I think I missed one. Tom Massey. Yeah. So Tom Massey from Kentucky, he said something as to the Fourth Amendment. It wasn't as strong as the others, but that's to let you know that there's a bipartisan rebuke of her performance and bipartisan efforts in calling for her to be removed. Everyone did a really, really good job, but those stand out the most. And I'm gonna explain to you why those stand out the most out of all of the different ones that we heard for the last 2 days. So as I wrap up this framing, I want to let you know that she perjured herself a lot, but the focus of the hearings usually fell on, the biggest focus were four. One, obviously, the wanton, blatant violations of Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, Eighth Amendment rights of Americans, residents, just across the country, which she denied. She perjured herself. That's one. The second is the corruption in the form of the stonewalling of oversight investigations. There's 11 of them pending, apparently. And then also the corruption in form of her spending, whether spending on a luxury jet, spending excessively on warehouses for detention centers. And then finally, and the big one is spending on a media contract for a marketing campaign that featured her. That's a big one. And then finally, the fourth is the accountability or lack of accountability, specifically her calling Renee Good and Alex Preddy domestic terrorists and refusal to acknowledge those statements and the damaging nature of those statements or held accountable, and just wanted to die on that sword of these unvetted, poorly trained, randos picked up off the street. I don't know who and why would anyone want to sacrifice their entire career for people they barely know, who are like underlings, but that's what she wants to do. That's what she wants to do. So those are the main the themes, lots of perjury. And I'm going to, again, like I say, stitch on the back of this, the videos of the MVPs so you can note. So this video may be long. If YouTube doesn't let me publish this super long version of it, that's going to have the receipts of all these examples I'm going to share with you in a second, then I will just divide them up into those different 4 categories that I told you, and then you can see it then. And I think another category could be possibly, there's one that talked about how the bumbling aspect of the deporting people who are witnesses to crimes, and it's kind of like you're undermining yourself. There was, I forget who called them out on that. I think it was Representative J.R. Paul called her out on that specifically. So anyway, so let's get into it. Now, let's go.
Okay. So bottom line is, I've done the analysis.
How these 3 senators were able to convince Donald Trump to fire Kristi Noem is because they did, all of them across the political spectrum, which really just 3 because the Republicans didn't really do much besides 2 or 3 kind of, is that they name-checked Donald Trump. And they reminded the audience and Kristi Noem that Donald Trump has a specific legacy of things that he wanted to do. He has specific flagship campaign promises that the hallmark of his administration, and she single-handedly is destroying it. And she's destroying it in an open way, openly corrupt way, obviously traceable, with lots of witnesses, lots of bodies, lots of whistleblowers. And that can't be good, especially when Donald Trump saw the trouble coming down and picked her anyway. And this is a big mistake on his part, that he shouldn't have picked her. She has no law enforcement background. He picked her because she killed a puppy and a goat, and she had extreme disdain for the natives in her state. And so he's like, that's perfect. That's who I want, that she's on board with me. And she's a loyalist. Yeah. So it happens you pick loyalists who are untrained, unqualified, with no law enforcement background to lead one of the nation's biggest law enforcement departments in your executive agency. Just what you get. So the first one, and I think the most strong, forceful one on the Republican side, was Senator Tom Tillis, who said to Kristi Noem, "You're essentially destroying Donald Trump's legacy." So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and play that for you first, Senator Tom Tillis. Read her for filth.
Okay. The bottom line is, I've done the analysis, and you can say whatever you want to. I've worked with the Democrat governor. I've worked with the Republican governor. I've worked with fiscal research. We have people contacting my office now to get the information to better understand the failure of this department. You failed at FEMA, and in fact, if I get to it, actually, why don't I cover this right now? The Homeland Security Act of 2002 expressly prohibits the Secretary of Homeland Security from restricting or diverting FEMA resources from the agency's mission. Based on your disaster response, the chart that I just showed you, I have reason to believe that you're violating the law, either knowingly or unknowingly. So I'll be asking and getting a submission to the record, submitting a question for the record, what the total amount of FEMA reimbursements are currently being held by DHS, awaiting for final approval. Held by DHS, awaiting for final approval for an agency that you should not be obstructing the disbursement on. I'm going to give you time to answer to it under penalty of perjury so that we can get it right. Now, going back to Minneapolis, why can't we just say we made a mistake? I will ask you one question, if you can just give me a quick response. Who does Tom Homan work for? You or the president?
The president.
Okay. Why is that? Because I believe the president recognized that you weren't getting it done in Minneapolis, and you're putting us further away from pointing to this. We're beginning to get the American people to think that deporting people is wrong. It's the exact opposite. The way you're going about deporting them is wrong. The fact that you can't admit to a mistake, which looks like under investigation, is going to prove that Ms. Good and Mr. Petty probably should not have been shot in the face and in the back. Law enforcement needs to learn from that. You don't protect them by not looking after the facts. Not only should the FBI be investigating it, but every single law enforcement agency in that jurisdiction should be invited to it, so our law enforcement officers do not have this pall cast upon them. One of the reasons why ICE officers are having threats, and damn the people that threaten ICE officers, because so many of them are doing a good job, is because you've cast a pall on them by acting like we should investigate things differently. Officer-involved shootings have a formula that we should go through every time. And we're not going through that formula. As a matter of fact, in Ms. Good's case, I think that they were even saying that maybe there wasn't even a need to do it in the DOJ. I hope that that's changed. But I'm telling you, it was a civil rights review. I saw your frown. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But originally, Blanche said there wouldn't be an investigation. Folks, law enforcement, we've got to have their back. We've got to make it clear when they make a mistake, then they get corrected for it. But you don't walk away from it, and you've done it too many times. Now, Secretary, I read your book last week. And honestly, some of the parts of it impressed me, but some of it distresses me. And I'll give you a good example of one that does. The passage where you talk about killing a dog that was 14 months old. I train dogs, all right? And you are a farmer. You should know better. You should know that if you're going out to a hunting lodge and you're putting pheasants out and you're putting dogs out, you don't take a puppy out there. A 14-month-old dog is basically a teenager in dog years. You decided to kill that dog because you had not invested the appropriate time in training, and then you have the audacity to go into a book and say it's a leadership lesson about tough choices. It's in your book. We could play it if we had time. At that same lunch hour, you killed a goat. And you killed the goat because you said it was behaving badly. You are a farmer. You don't castrate a goat. They behave badly. You should have probably done that before. But my point is, those are bad decisions made in the heat of the moment. Not unlike what happened up in Minneapolis. We're an exceptional nation. And one of the reasons we're exceptional is we expect exceptional leadership. And you've demonstrated anything but that in the time that I've seen you responding to the emergency in North Carolina and across the Southeast, and acknowledging when mistakes are made, and speaking too soon for the expedient of social media or whatever it is. I'll leave you with this, Ms. Noem. I'm expecting answers to Charlotte's Web. I requested it a month ago. That was one of the investigations in Charlotte, 20 minutes from where I live. All I asked for, if it had to be anonymized, was information so that I could determine if your hit rate is right. I want to find more of those people, and I want to detain fewer of the others. And Mr. Chair, in my remaining time, I have a lot to go. But I want to submit this letter from the Office of Inspector General that cites 10 different instances under Ms. Noem's leadership where they've been misled and not allowed to pursue investigations that they think are critically important. Does anybody have any idea how bad it has to be for the OIG in this agency to come out and do this publicly? That is stonewalling, that's a failure of leadership, and that is why I've called for your resignation. And if I don't get an answer to these questions, I don't want an applause. Please don't do that for me. If I don't get an answer to these questions, if I don't get an answer that you've had a month to respond to, and the remaining ones, as of today, I'll be informing leadership that I'm putting a hold on any en bloc nominations until I get a response. And in 2 weeks, if I don't get a response, I'm going to deny quorum and markup in as many committees as I can until I get a response. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Now, wasn't that delicious? Up next is the second runner-up is Kennedy. So again, calling out Kristi Noem for damaging Donald Trump's legacy. Specifically in this clip, you're going to see him say, you saying that Donald Trump approved a $200 million media campaign. My friend Donald Trump, who's very frugal, who's all about waste, fraud, and abuse, who is a shrewd businessman, I don't say that, that's what he would say, is going to approve something like this, where this is featuring you, and it's just
I believe you have a policy, Madam Secretary, that you have to approve all contracts at your department over $100 million.
Appeared to be.
Yeah, but you said these appeared to be acts of domestic terrorism.
And as I've said previously, one that is running is focusing on angel families. Have you seen that? It is the one that's talking about this is our why. This is why we work every day, is for the angel families and their victims that need to.
After the 2 killings in Minneapolis, and I think there's a lot of video on them, Madam Secretary. I think people can see the video and draw their own conclusions. Are you and your department conducting an investigation of those?
Yes, sir, the investigation is being led by the FBI. HSI was involved. In fact, our HSI agents on the ground.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I got so little time. I believe at the time you said these were acts of domestic terrorism. Is that right?
Sir, in answer to questions at the press conference that afternoon, it was that it appeared to be.
Yeah, but you said these appeared to be acts of domestic terrorism.
And as I've said previously in this hearing, is that
first, Madam Secretary, did you say
we're getting information from a chaotic scene on the ground and relaying information to the American people.
Okay. Now, again, those videos are public. People can draw their own conclusions. I think it'd be safe to say you got some pushback on that. Mm-hmm. Would that be fair?
Yes, sir.
And you got some criticism. I'm not saying the criticism was accurate or inaccurate. I think you did. Mm-hmm. What got my attention was that you blamed those statements on Mr. Stephen Miller at the White House. Did you not?
No, sir, I did not. And in fact, where you're seeing that is in a news article of anonymous sources. And anonymous sources say a lot of things, but I've never said that at all.
Well, here's what you said on the record. I'm going to read your words. Quote, everything I've done at the direction of the president and Stephen.
Sir, where did you see me say that at? You read that in a news article with no sources affiliated to it.
You said it on the record on January 27th of 2026. Mm-hmm. Did I read your words accurate?
I enjoy working with the president and with Stephen Miller, and that day we were working to get as much information to the American people as possible. That is what we'll continue to do, and as that happens, we'll go forward.
Do you think it was fair to blame Mr. Miller?
Sir, I did not do that. You're reading from a newspaper article with anonymous sources.
Are you denying that you said that?
Sir, I'm not going to speak to that situation that is relayed on anonymous sources that no one has heard me say that.
It was you.
No. Who
I mean, you
reported
said
that
it.
to that newspaper?
They're quoting you on the record, saying it's Stephen's fault. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What is she, the first runner-up, the winner for the Democratic side? And she was like, she realized when she said yes and he forced her, he backed her into saying yes. Exactly. This is what happens when you come before a congressional oversight hearing. If it wasn't for the hearing, she wouldn't have been in a position to be forced to say this statement, which is clearly a lie, but clearly sets either Donald Trump up or set herself up. That's why we do hearings. Now, on the Democratic side, there's several different senators. I think Senator Schiff did a really good job as well. But for interest of the space for now, I'll put his on another video on another time. But just for this video, for brevity sake, I'm just going to just include Senator Cory Booker. And Senator Booker called her out. And I'm not going to do all of what he did. I'm going to just focus on the back part when he called her out for the spending. And he's name-checked Donald Trump. Like, this is something that Donald Trump, he's the art of a deal. And you really did a bad deal here, Ms. Noem. And you kind of embarrassed your agency, the executive agency of the president, and Donald Trump himself when you did this deal. So look at what I'm talking about here now from Cory Booker.
In our communities. How do you think that affects them when children in my state go running, fleeing, and often you all pursue children, throwing them to the ground, getting on their backs, putting them in handcuffs? I want to talk to you about this incredible empire of for-profit companies that are profiting at rates we've never seen, and the way you're using money. Let's drill down on the warehouses that DHS has been buying over the last several months, totaling hundreds of millions of dollars. Are you familiar with the acquisition of a warehouse DHS recently bought in Roxbury Township, New Jersey?
Yes.
You are familiar with that?
Mm-hmm. I'm
Do you
familiar
know
that
how much you spent for it?
No, sir, I do not.
$129.3 million. Do you know how much it was assessed for in New Jersey?
Sir, we're purchasing centers across the country to build efficiency into our detention system.
Efficiency to
so
me, as a person who's run tight budgets before and had taxpayer dollars, you paid $129.3 million for a facility in my state that was assessed at less than half of that, at $62 million. To work for a president that says he's a great deal maker, I can't believe he thinks that you're a great deal maker. But what's worse than that is that the Roxbury Township Council, comprised entirely of Republicans, voted unanimously early this year to oppose that facility. My office tried to facilitate a meeting between DHS and local officials so that ICE could hear their concerns, yet DHS did not even respond. That is unacceptable, that you all would enter a town. You wouldn't even follow environmental reviews or have conversations with local officials about the resources, from emergency resources to fire resources and more, that you're going to pull down. You didn't even have a conversation. Senator Noem, do you comply with court orders?
Yes, we do comply.
Your agency complies with court orders.
Yes, we comply with federal court orders.
You were saying under oath that you do, and yet we know in January the chief judge, Republican appointed for the Federal District of Minnesota, found that ICE had violated nearly 100 court orders since January 1st alone. In my state of New Jersey, last month, the chief of staff to Deputy Attorney General admitted in my state that in the New Jersey District Court that the government had violated 52 separate court orders, all involving cases where immigrants successfully challenged the legality of their detention. So this again is a constitution that you swore an oath to, and one of the most important ideals is that no one is above the law. You are violating the separation of powers, violating court orders, and routinely violating the civil rights of Americans. This is a reckless and out-of-control agency that you are responsible for. You seem to have no situational awareness whatsoever of some of the most egregious examples of Americans being completely attacked, violated, undermined in accordance with our laws by their own government. And this is what is phenomenal to me, is immigration was your president's #1 issue, overwhelmingly popular with the American people. But now it's overwhelmingly unpopular. And it's not because you are deporting dangerous people that everybody here wants out of our country. No, it's because you're going into our schools. You're terrorizing our children. You're detaining children. You're arresting Americans. You're breaking into our homes. You're terrorizing our streets. You're violating our rights to peacefully protest again and again and again.
None of
and then
that
when
is
a court tells you
None
to
of
stop,
that is true.
and then when a court
You are
tells
trying
you to stop,
to impede
you
us
violate
from enforcing
judges'
the law
orders. Not in
and
a
getting
partisan
dangerous
way,
criminals off of our streets
Republican-appointed
so
and
we don't have more
Democratic-appointed.
families like the ones that are
Don't
sitting
sit
behind
there
me.
and tell me that
Lost
you are
their children, are
responsible
gone forever.
for the running of your agency when you're not even aware. Either you are utterly incompetent or you are violating laws with impunity. You should step down from your position. If you don't, you should be removed by this president. And if not, Congress should impeach you.
I appreciate the...
See, it's about the name checking. It's like, dude, this girl is making you look bad. Not girl, this woman is making you look bad. All right. And then finally, Senator Peter Welch really laid out the case for why that contract was ridiculous, a waste of spending. And he said, hey, girl, it's like, this is ridiculous. This is abuse. This is a flagrant abuse, open, corrupt. Let's look.
On the question of, Madam Secretary, welcome. On the question of Alex Preddy and Renee Good, I heard your answers to my colleague, Senator Schiff. But knowing what you do know, do you want to take an opportunity to apologize to their families that you characterized them on the basis of the information you had at the time, that they were engaged in domestic terrorism?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I certainly offer my condolences to these families and for their loss. And it was a tragic situation that we saw in Minneapolis. And we continue to work to make sure that those situations are handled appropriately.
Question. I understand you're offering condolences. You said something that accused them of being domestic terrorists. A 37-year-old mother of 3, a 37-year-old Veteran Administration nurse. One question, do you want to apologize for that characterization that they were domestic terrorists?
I will continue every day to get up and to work hard to give everybody factual information and do all that I can to portray it.
I want to move on to the use of department resources. Senator Kennedy asked a number of questions about this contract, $220 million. Senator Schiff asked about it as well, and I do too. I don't want to question what the purpose was, but how the award was made. This is $220 million. It was an advertising campaign, as I understand it, that featured you, and you on a horse at Mount Rushmore. The contract was a no-bid contract. You acknowledge that?
I wasn't involved with this contracting process, so my understanding is that there was many companies that competed for this contract.
The answer to that is yes or no.
No. I don't believe it was. I believe other companies competed for this because there was 2 different vendors that were chosen.
I have here a document from usspending.gov. And this document specifically states the justification for no-bid contract that goes to Safe America Media and People Who Think. Those are the 2 entities that did the campaign, correct?
I believe it is. I wasn't a part of this contracting process.
Let's get serious here.
Yes.
Okay? Make the Safe America was incorporated 11 days or 7 days by my count before they got an award of $143 million. You have any dispute with that?
Are you talking about the subcontractor on that contract?
No, Safe America.
Senator, I wasn't a part of this decision.
Okay.
We followed the same processes
Madam
that have
Secretary,
been our policies and
I'll
how
go
this
through
was
this and then you
conducted
can answer.
appropriately.
I will go through this and then you can answer. I don't want us to be talking over each other. Safe America was incorporated 11 days or 7 days by my account before they got a $143 million contract. Now, as a administrator who has fiscal responsibility over a huge budget, do you realistically think that a company that was created 11 days before they got $143 million is in a position to execute on a $143 million contract?
Senator, I can't speak to their business model. I will tell you that since I've been at the department, I have reviewed over 10,000 contracts.
Okay,
I have
let me keep
saved the
going through
taxpayers.
this. I'll go through this, all right? This is on a U.S. government website that says that contract for $143 million was a no-bid contract. Public documentation says the contract of $143 million went to the Safe America company, created 11 days before they got an award. That company then subcontracted with the strategy group, and you are familiar with many of the principals in the strategy group, correct?
I know one of them,
Mr. Yoho.
yes.
And let me show you a photograph. That's Mr. Yoho standing next to you, correct?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Yoho is also the husband of your former spokesperson. Is that correct?
Correct.
Tricia McLaughlin.
Yes.
So your former assistant secretary and her husband are the ones that got the subcontract from Safe America, or from Safe America. That's what the record shows. Any dispute about that?
No, except there was no politicals, myself or anyone else besides career employees who were a part of that process.
Except
for putting out those contracts and
that's
choosing
generous.
those vendors.
But what you have is the Republican operative.
Well, you're trying to insinuate that
I'm not insinuating. I'm stating a fact. The fact is
You're saying that I weighed in on this contracting process and I did not.
Mr. Chairman, the fact is that Mr. Yoho was married to your assistant secretary, is married, correct?
Yes, they are still married.
All right. And Mr. Yoho also ran an ad campaign for you in your gubernatorial campaign, correct?
Yes.
And he also attended your inauguration.
Yes.
And Mr. Yoho received $8.5 million, or his company did, from the taxpayers of South Dakota when you ran an ad promotion showing you doing various jobs, like a plumber and a dentist, correct?
Again, that was done according to the law and processes at the state of South Dakota.
I understand, but
Yes,
this is a person that worked on your campaign. This is a person that worked on your media plan in South Dakota when you were governor. And this is a person who also worked on your memoir. Is that correct?
On my memoir?
And he worked with Mr. Lewandowski. Is that correct?
I don't know, sir. I don't know about the business arrangements they've had in the past.
Mr. Lewandowski is your special advisor.
Special government employee.
Right.
For the White
and
House.
Mr. Lewandowski brought Mr. Yoho into your camp. They had worked on the Louisiana governor's campaign, correct?
No, I knew Ben Yoho before that.
All right. So the person that you knew, Mr. Yoho, the husband of your assistant secretary, is the person in the company that got the subcontract 11 days after this original company, Safe America, was founded. That's the record. So I have a question. Did Mr. Lewandowski receive any compensation directly or indirectly from Safe America or from the strategy group?
Senator, I don't have any information to that. I can't speak to that.
Would that be of interest
I don't think so.
for you to find out?
Sure.
Well, so will you ask Mr. Lewandowski, did he get any compensation directly or indirectly from these contracts?
Are you asking me to go ask him?
Yes, I am. Ask your special government advisor.
I can do that.
And you'll get back to us.
Get back to you. Yes,
All
absolutely.
right, we will want that. Now, You said at a cabinet meeting on March 24th that we are going to eliminate FEMA. Is that correct?
Eliminate FEMA as we know it, that it was no longer going to be a politicized disaster response agency, that President Trump was going to ensure that it was there to respond.
We need FEMA reform. The people of Vermont have suffered. We had floods in July 14th of 2023, 2024, and 2025. We need local control. We can't have a FEMA that is abolished or a secretary that promotes abolishing FEMA and not providing services that our citizens in all our states need when they're on the receiving end of a monster storm.
FEMA has been responding twice as fast than it ever has in history and empowering states and local emergency management directors to respond. And we come in and support them as well.
I saw the graph that Senator Tillis held up, and that's not what that graph says. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Right. So those were the MVPs from the Senate side. Now, here's the thing. Those senators set it up. They set it up beautifully because the House of Representatives was next. So a lot of the members of the House of Representatives were able to watch her testimony and augment theirs to make sure they, as I gotcha moments, they actually hone in and able to fine tune the concern based on what she said the first time. And I think the number one, I don't know if I should go through like 4 through 1. Maybe I'll do that. So. One of the top, I'll just do the top, was Jared Moskowitz from Florida. His ending was superb, but essentially he's saying, like, you undermined. And again, the theme is that you've destroyed Donald Trump's legacy by yourself, alone. And he also called out the relationship with Cory Lewandowski in a way that you're going to see, in a way that some of the others throughout the day mentioned, but he kind of did it masterfully. Him, Joe Neguse, and also definitely the best who really went there was Representative Sydney Kamlager-Dove. I gotta see how to pronounce her name. Check that out.
Before I begin, first let me say to the families that are still here, I am very sorry for your loss. I watched parents in my hometown of Parkland bury their kids after the shooting at my high school at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and I can't tell you that it was an out-of-body experience, and there's nothing like burying a child. So I am deeply sorry for your loss. Madam Secretary, welcome. Good afternoon. Thomas Massey mentioned Ron DeSantis' response during COVID. Well, you're looking at the guy who ran that response. I was the Director of Emergency Management for the state of Florida. For a Republican governor, I worked with the Trump FEMA administration during the Category 5 Hurricane Michael recovery. That Trump's FEMA was great. We got expedited reimbursement, a program that you got rid of or threatened to get rid of. And the Panhandle had one of the greatest responses after that Category 5 storm. The President said he wanted to reform FEMA, but that's not what you did. You've basically destroyed the agency. Largest FEMA backlog in the history of FEMA. My state of Florida is owed $2.5 billion. You have delayed the FEMA disaster declarations even when the applicants meet FEMA statutory threshold under the Stafford Act. You want states to do more, yet you want to cut the EMPG program, which grants them funding to build capacity. Your office was involved in discussions of moving FEMA to Texas. You created a rule of anything over $100,000 has to come to your desk, a rule that has slowed down FEMA reimbursement, FEMA response. We have empty regional offices. You have done the opposite of what President Trump wanted to accomplish, which was to speed up the process. Your policies have made the department slower. I didn't think it was possible to make FEMA more bureaucratic, but boy, you have exceeded all my expectations. In the Texas floods, you didn't put the urban search and rescue crews on the road for 72 hours. Days later, the FEMA urban search and rescue chief resigned in protest. You hired 2 people as the administrator with no FEMA experience. We're on our 3rd FEMA administrator in 14 months. Never in the history of the department has that ever happened. The president took presidential action to create the FEMA Council. I supported it. You opposed the FEMA Council. You delayed its beginning. The report has still not come out. The White House canceled your last council meeting and has held up the release of the report. But surprise, I have it. I have it. I want to thank the former FEMA employees that you fired who gave this to me. This report's never been seen in public before, okay? But this is it. This was the report. It was 122 pages, the original draft report. You and Cory Lewandowski then took the report and made it 23 pages. You cut out all the stuff that was put in by governors who had been through disasters, emergency management directors, FEMA experts, national security experts. You cut it all out. It's all gone. That's why the report's not been released. It's sitting in the White House trying to figure out this mess that you created. So instead of getting the recommendations we need, now we have nothing. You've called Cory Lewandowski a special government employee. I understand what government means. I understand what employee means, okay? But I don't know what makes him special. Now, I want to give you an opportunity to answer on the record to Ms. Kamlager-Dove's question. I know you said it's garbage, and it may be, but I really think you need to say the word no into the record so that you can clear that up.
I think the ridiculousness of this and the tabloids that you are quoting and referencing are insane. And this has been
So that's a no?
something that I've refuted
Is
for
that a no?
years, and I continue to do that.
So it's a no.
What I would tell you is
We can
with
move on.
regards
Hold
to
on,
what you're
Madam Senator,
doing,
we can move on. I'm not going to belabor it. If it's
this is what you do.
Hold on, I'm not doing anything.
Liberal left
Okay.
is you go off and you
I-
attack
I was-
conservative women,
I would-
and you say that we're either stupid
I haven't
or
said
we're
anything.
sluts.
All right, so listen.
And that's what you do.
Yesterday,
And I will tell you,
Richard,
sir,
reclaiming
I will
my
tell
time,
you,
Mr.
sir,
Chairman.
I
Mr.
am
Chairman,
neither of
reclaiming my
those.
time.
I
You
am
were asked
neither
by
of
Richard
those.
Blumenthal
This is
yesterday.
from the
You were
playbook.
asked
Out of
by
the
Richard
Democratic
Blumenthal
Party.
yesterday if Cory was involved in approving contracts. You said no. Do you want to correct that?
What I would say is that he has an advisor to the Department of Homeland Security, has no
Madam Secretary,
decision-making
do you want to correct
authority.
it, yes or no? You don't want to correct
no
it, fine.
decision-making authority,
Hold
no
on,
role in
not a
contract.
problem. According to one of the FEMA administrators that you fired, there is nothing, including contracts, that is brought to you that he hasn't reviewed. In fact, a significant amount of DHS internal routing documents has his signature on it above deputy secretaries. Okay, that former FEMA administrator wasn't fired by you, the secretary. He was fired by Cory. It was Cory that called him into your office. It was Cory that made him to submit to a polygraph test. The $100,000 spending rule that you created that comes to your desk, you're not even sitting at your desk. It's Cory who's sitting there. ISIS said the Republicans should be happy at the job that you're doing. Really? You're looking at the person who single-handedly took the president's signature core issue, immigration, the issue that got him elected from 59% to 39%. 200 miles of border walls being held up by you. They had to bring in Tom Homan, pull out of Minnesota. I think the country needs a national divorce from you on biblical grounds. I mean, if Donald Trump was still apprentice Trump, he would look at you and he would realize you're the weakest cabinet member and he would fire you. And if the president said to you that only way DHS could reopen is if you resigned, I hope you would take him up on it. Now, I want to end on a happy note, Mr. Chairman, real quickly. The president gave all sorts of stuff out during the State of the Union. I don't want you to leave. I got you a new Coast Guard blankie, the one you lost. Okay, so this is for you. You don't leave empty-handed when you come to judiciary.
that.
Thank you, Mr.
Time, the
Chairman.
gentleman has expired. The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Isn't that good? Now, he mentioned that Representative Kristi Kamlager-Dove had set it up brilliantly because she's the one actually, so he says, we're going to go back here again because she never said no. So, and why I love Representative Kamlager-Dove's presentation is because she just kind of laid out Cory Lewandowski. I didn't even know all these things about him. She was just like, he was fired. He's no good. He's abusive. He's violent. He has no experience. He's unqualified. He's a loose cannon. And you have poor judgment by having this person with no experience. The only qualification he has is that allegedly, reportedly, according to tabloids, according to him taking your trash out your apartment. Yeah, check that out.
Lewandowski, your de facto chief of staff, who possesses an unchecked level of power at DHS. Under your leadership, this person has done things like fire your FEMA administrator while sitting behind your desk, which is your job to do, lobby to build the controversial detention facility known as Alligator Alcatraz, which has turned into a legal boondoggle costing Florida millions, and have veto and reviewing and signing power over large DHS contracts and grants, which again is your job. DHS has critical agency components like the Secret Service, FEMA, Border Patrol, cybersecurity. So does Cory Lewandowski have national security experience, military experience, law enforcement experience? No. He is a lobbyist, a failed campaign manager, which is causing my constituents who are waiting for their FEMA dollars and me to wonder what are his qualifications for this job. So according to the Wall Street Journal, you and Mr. L have a close relationship that has made President Trump, quote, uncomfortable. The president reportedly denounced Cory Lewandowski as your chief of staff due to reports of a romantic relationship between the two of you. So instead, you designated him as a special government and employee, a position he has had well beyond the allowed 130 days and requires him to disclose if he is making money off of his position. Trump knows that this guy is shady, Cory has a decades-long record of physical battery, sexual harassment, illegal lobbying for a Venezuelan oil company, and bringing a loaded gun into a federal building. Despite being fired or removed from virtually every position he has ever held due to misconduct, he now wields unchecked, unconfirmed, undisclosed power over your department. This person has no experience running anything close to Department of Homeland Security or even advising someone in your position. He is unqualified, which again has left my constituents and I wondering why he is your top official. So Secretary Noem, at any time during your tenure as Director of Department of Homeland Security, have you had sexual relations with Cory Lewandowski?
Mr. Chairman, I am shocked that we're going down and peddling tabloid garbage in this committee today.
Reclaiming
and
my
ma'am,
time.
one thing that I would tell you is that he is a special government employee who works for the White House. There are thousands of them in the federal government.
So reclaiming
and
my
is an
time,
advisor
Secretary, it is
and has
okay for
no,
you to be
no
offended
authority
by
to
the
be
question.
making any
It is
decisions.
okay for you to
has
be
no
offended
authority
by the
to
question.
be making
But it is
decisions
also
and
a
putting
real
up your
question.
position. So what I would say
And
to
you
you
should be able to
is
answer
that
the
what we do at the
question
Department of Homeland
clearly
Security every single
and without
day,
any hesitation.
every single day is to protect
If
this
someone
country
is
and
asking
to make
if
decisions.
you or any federal official is sleeping with their subordinate, that should be the easiest. You should be wanting to answer that question.
Is garbage?
Because it is not about
It is
your sex
offensive
life.
that you have brought
It is
that up.
about your
No,
judgment.
that kind of garbage
It is
has
about
been refuted
reclaiming
for
my
years,
time so
and
that
you
I
need
can
to
hear myself.
recognize-
Time belongs to the gentlelady from California, but it'd be nice if you would let her respond.
I will. I want to let you know it is about your judgment and decision-making. It is about the 260,000 employees that work under you that want to make sure that you are giving information and making decisions clearly. It is about conflict of interest. It is about a national security risk. Department of Homeland Security was created right after 9/11 to protect the homeland. And DHS has circulated an internal bulletin to law enforcement partners warning that the conflict of the war we're in could inspire lone actors or small-scale cyber activity inside the United States, according to a memo obtained by ABC News. So American lives are at risk. The people who work for you are at risk. And they want to know that the person at the top, you, are making decisions clearly, without any sort of cloudiness, and that they're your decisions because you're the secretary who was confirmed. That's what this is about. Saving the lives of Americans and not costing them millions of dollars and not having a secretary who's compromised in her decision-making. And Mr. Chair, before I yield my time, I would like to enter into the record some articles, and I'm asking for unanimous consent. Noem tightens her grip on DHS. Lewandowski fired FEMA admin.
Without
while saying,
objection.
Okay. The next one is Kristi Noem secretly took a cut of political donations from ProPublica.
Without objection.
Kristi Noem fires pilot over a blanket, but is forced to reinstate him to fly home. Wall Street Journal.
Without objection.
Lewandowski taking out trash at Noem's D.C. home. Daily Beast.
Without objection.
Barbie's Mile High privacy chamber with alleged lover exposed. Wall Street Journal, how Cory Lewandowski became Kristi Noem's gatekeeper at DHS.
Without objection.
A pilot fired over Kristi Noem's missing blanket and the constant chaos inside DHS.
Without
Wall
objection.
Street Journal. Police charged Trump campaign manager with assault. PBS News.
Without objection.
Woman who accused Cory Lewandowski of assault speaks out. I don't want this to happen to anyone else. CBS News. Lewandowski's firm quietly inked deal with Venezuela-owned company Politico.
Without objection.
List of U.S. cities raising security amid Iran conflict. Newsweek.
Without objection.
Kristi Noem, I have a few more, I'm sorry. Kristi Noem misled Congress yesterday about top aides' role in DHS contracts.
Without objection.
Policy number 10271 from ICE, it is an anti-fraternization policy prohibiting romantic or sexual relationships between supervisors and their subordinates. And with that, I yield.
Without objection. Gentleman from
So It's really, I mean, now it sounds scandalous, but it really is about judgment. And they're running the administration. I'm sure this stuff is getting back to Donald Trump, especially as she said that Donald Trump has said he didn't like it in the first place. That's why he refused her offer to make him the press secretary, actually have him named in the administration, a special government employee. It's limited, and he's violating that law. And then you should know also that by handling matters, and when the investigation showed that he self-dealt while special government employee, when the numbers and all the stuff tickering down, we start figuring out when people start investigating and subpoenaing stuff like that, that's open corruption. It's a violation of federal law as a special government employee to work on matters to which you have a benefit. That's something that Elon did. So that's going to come back. That's going to come back to him. Open corruption. Him, the team, all of them, everybody, all the folks who did all that stuff, they're all going down. They're going down eventually. So just mark my words. And I'm going to put a graphic here of 3 examples of open corruption, self-dealing, single bid contracts, kickbacks. People went to prison for that. So if they can go to prison for that, as a civilian, she can too. And that's probably why he said, I can't fire her altogether and kick her out, because once I do, then she really is going to be open to subject to some sort of, she's really going to get it. She can get it after when I leave. Anyway, so that was it. And like I said, Joe Neguse took what Senator Welch started the day before and brought it home and went into the fact that this company really has no footprint whatsoever. So watch that. That was one of the most memorable. He has some memorable zingers. Sometimes this stuff gets buried, but during Pam Bondi's hearing, he said he had his session was really, really good, but underreported. So here's Joe Neguse. I'm giving him his flowers.
Mr. Chairman, good afternoon, Madam Secretary. Thank you for being here. I want to discuss in greater detail the expansion of advertising in your department under your tenure. And I believe you testified regarding some of these matters yesterday in front of the United States Senate. In particular, I want to discuss the department's $220 million ad campaign. This is the ad campaign that featured you at Mount Rushmore. You're familiar with this ad campaign, correct?
I am familiar with it. It was an ad campaign that was
I'm going to ask you some questions about it, Madam Secretary. So. As I understand it, this is a $220 million ad campaign. It's split between 2 contractors. One of those contractors got $143 million. That contractor is called Safe America Media, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That company is affiliated with a former political director of the National Republican Congressional Committee. Now, yesterday you testified, I think I'm quoting you right, you said, quote, or in reference to this contract, that, quote, it went out to a competitive bid. Do you stand by that statement?
It was a no-bid contract where 2 vendors were
It was a no-bid
chosen.
contract.
If it would have been a no-bid contract, if I'm using that correctly, it goes out to 2 different vendors.
Correct. So it was not a competitive. Let me try to explain what the discrepancy, because a competitive bid is very different than a no competitive bid. And I'll just explain why. We know that your testimony yesterday, when you said, again, I'll quote, it went out to a competitive bid, is untrue. The reason we know it's untrue is because under federal law, your agency is required, whenever the agency decides to skip competitive bidding, to file a notice with the public explaining why. And in this case, your agency filed a notice. You're aware of that, right? Justification and approval for other than full and open competition. Your agency made a decision not to proceed with competitive bidding, and one of the contractors that got the award was this Safe America Media Company that received $143 million.
Many vendors got the chance to look at that contract and to participate in it.
So
that is why the 2 of them were chosen.
That's inaccurate, Madam Secretary. I'll read from the notice from your agency. Given the immediate action to significantly reduce illegal immigration and border crossings, DHS identified 4 companies. 4 of the hundreds of thousands of companies in the United States, you identified 4. One of those is this Safe America Media Company. Where is Safe America Media headquartered?
I don't know.
I don't know either, Madam Secretary. We can't find it. We can't find a website. We did find an address that's registered for this company. Do you know where that address is?
Is there a problem with this contract?
I'll
Because
tell you
was
about
done
it.
according to
Madam
law.
Secretary,
It was done by
the
career
address is
officials.
registered to a political
It was
operative.
dollars that were spent
Madam Secretary, the
to
company,
inform
and then
people
I'll give you an
that the
opportunity to
laws-
respond.
Look.
The company is registered to a political operative in Virginia. Do you know, just by way of example, whether this company that received $143 million in taxpayer dollars, has it ever done work for the government before?
I don't know. I can't.
The answer is it has not. And do you know why we know that? Because it was incorporated 8 days before this contract went out. You want the American people to believe that this is all above board?
Yes,
that $143 million of taxpayer money just happened to go to this one company that doesn't have a headquarters, doesn't have a website, has never done work for the federal government before, and is registered apparently or attached to a residence from a political operative. And of course, one of the subcontractors of that contract, as you know, is a political firm that's tied to you back when you were governor of South Dakota. The reason why I ask these questions is that this is taxpayer money. And I presume, I don't know this for a fact, but Senator Tillis noted yesterday the way in which your agency is blocking the Inspector General from 11 different investigations that it is trying to conduct. I don't know if this happens to be one of them. I certainly hope it is, because eventually the facts will become public in this regard. And there are serious laws implicated, conflict of interest laws, federal procurement laws, that I believe
All
merit.
followed. All done correctly.
Was
All
it-
done
all done
legally.
correctly?
14 billion impressions from that
the-
marketing campaign.
sure.
It was money spent in this country and in 8 different countries that illegal migration was coming from.
Madam Secretary,
Overwhelmingly
yeah,
effective.
we all
$49
understand the
billion.
argument that you've made. The argument that you've made that somehow this ad campaign on Fox News of you at Mount Rushmore has led to millions of people self-deporting. You're
Why do you-
using
why do you think
millions
that
of
they did
dollars of
self-deport? Had they
taxpayer
not known?
money in this way. It is fraud, and ultimately, I think there's going to be accountability. And I yield back, Madam.
Can I speak?
Yeah, that was good, wasn't it? Yeah, so those were the stars. I don't want this video to go too long with you. Those are the reasons why I believe she was fired today, because it made Donald Trump look look bad. Like she, from Cory Booker saying, wow, the man behind the art is a deal. You really disappointed Donald Trump there with this contract. And Donald Trump said it's okay to spend $200 million on that. And you realize that you're destroying Donald Trump's legacy here, right? You realize that that's you know that you're single-handedly causing him to the undermining, the shift. His ratings are dropping. Republicans are going to lose because of the way you're handling this damn administration, your failure to be accountable, your failure to rein things in, this hot mess. And then you're just not good at your job, lady. You really suck. You really created a culture, the lack of accountability that you see this running, and the fact that they know that you're defending it, and you see the savagery, and you're lying about it. She lied. She said that there was a competitive bid. So let's count the amount of times Kristi Noem perjured herself. She said that there was competitive bid. That was perjury. She should have known that. She knew that was a controversial thing. Why did she come in knowing that? Like, you knew that was a controversy. You knew they were going to ask about that. Why would you set yourself up to lie? At minimum, admit it and just say, I was under the impression that it was a competitive bid. I was mistaken. But instead, continue to say, no, it was not. It was not competitive bidding. Then she lies and says that these were preliminary field agents told me that it was a domestic terrorist. Who are these preliminary field agents? When the investigation come out, it's going to turn out that was Stephen Miller, or there were no field agents that told her that. And she just said that. Then she also lied under oath when she said that the president approved the $200 million. Donald Trump's probably like, I ain't approved no $200 million. So Trump's like, why are you lying on me? Why are you making me look bad? She also probably lied under the oath when she said that FEMA works as fast as effort. It's the fastest. Like, why are you misstating the facts when the man just showed you how yours is like inefficient in running? The previous day, Senator Tillis showed you a chart that showed you how you were not efficient. There are representatives that says that lots of representative members said we've been waiting because there's a backlog because of the stupid rule that Cory Lewandowski puts in when he wants control, his unqualified ass, because he's tapping the ass of the allegedly, reportedly, of the boss. And she just yielded all her power and authority to Stephen Miller and Cory Lewandowski, and she's weak. and she was just used. And people are saying, well, you know, in the alligator Alcatraz, oh my God. So that was a perjury. She also perjured herself as it relates to accountability. When Cory Booker was going through all the things that were happening, she was like, none of that's true. None of it's true. That's lying. Why are you lying? It reminded me of Michael Jackson. None of it's true. None of it's true. She sounded like Michael Jackson too.
None of it's true. None of it's true. It's BS. They made it up.
None of
And then
that
when a
is true.
court tells you
None
to
of
stop,
that is true.
and then when a court
You are
tells
trying
you to stop,
to impede
you
us
violate
from enforcing
judges'
the
orders,
law
not
and
in a
getting
partisan
dangerous.
way.
Like, girl, you just, that's easily fact checkable. He's giving you the facts and you're still insisting that it's not true. That's crazy. So that was perjury. She also perjured herself when she said, all of our officers follow the Constitution. Girl, there are several chief judges in Minneapolis, in Portland, in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in West Virginia, in DC, and Charlotte have all said your officers fail to follow court orders and violate the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution constantly. During the 2 days, they showed people who were tortured. So that's violation of the Eighth Amendment against cruel and unusual punishment. So how are you saying your officers follow the... And the amount of lying, the amount of perjury, which is all stuff that if she could be prosecuted for perjury. She go to jail for the amount of perjury she committed. So I don't even know if she realizes it. Is her brain so fried? And she just like, I hear that she doesn't eat much and she doesn't eat well. I don't want to body shame anyone, but she's very, very thin and it's not natural because you saw her face before she was South Dakota governor and previous times, she had fullness in her cheeks and face. So that's probably her natural size. And a woman of her age, unless she doesn't eat, shouldn't be that small. Unless she has a condition. So she could have a condition, which could cause her to be that thin. But minus a condition that's just unnatural. So she could just be hungry. She could be hungry and all that Botox, her face can't move. And then combined with all together is why she was looking like that. Anyway, I'm making this video going longer than it needs to unnecessarily. And if it gets blocked, it's going to be my fault. So that's it. Let's discuss below. What do you think? Your thoughts?